Hi, I'm Naisha McCauley here with W4 News, only on accesstv.org. We're here at the downtown Hartford Marriott, and we have been invited to attend the Prosperity Foundation event. Now, you may have heard of the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving and other philanthropic entities, but tonight you are going to hear from a foundation that has been founded by the Black community for the Black community. So join me as we discover and learn more about the Prosperity Foundation.
My name's J.C. McCauley, and you're watching accesstv.org.
Now, the thing that I have in my book is answers to these things, what to do. That's why I named the book How to Succeed. And then I talk about what. I'm not talking about whining about these circumstances. You gotta deal with it. It's what do you do? And then even in the back of the book, there are planning, short-term plans as to what do you want to do, what's your mission, vision, all of that kind of stuff is in the back of the book too. Okay, I've been up here a long time. I'm going to stick around for a while at the end.
All of our grantees that are present, will you please stand? All right, thank you. So the Prosperity Foundation Small Grant Initiative is for efforts for community-based 501c3 organizations led by and serving Connecticut's Black community to address education, health, and economic development in Connecticut's Black communities. And as Nancy said before, when we talk about Black communities, we're talking about African Americans as well as African Caribbeans. And so we do have a number of grantees, and so we are going to feature a few of them for you tonight. We have on the screen, we will have Frank Dixon from the Black Business Alliance, which is a statewide organization here in Connecticut, as well as Dan Jacino from Emerge, which is based in New Haven, and also Lorna Little from St. Agnes Home in West Hartford.
Executive Director of St. Agnes Home. St. Agnes Home has been around for 102 years, so it's been here for quite a while. I have not been here that long, but I've been here for 12 years. And it's been a wonderful program and opportunity for me to be able to really work with the young women and children in the program. The home itself is set up to provide support and services for young women and their children. Many of them are teenagers, and a lot of times when I talk to people about the program, I express to them, this is not a program where we're promoting teen pregnancy. I want them to clearly understand that these are young women that are in the community who many of them don't really have the level of support that others in the community would have. Many of them are homeless, some of them are in foster families, and what we provide is a safe environment to teach them new skills.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening. How's everybody doing? Good. All right, excellent. It's so wonderful to see all of you here. How about another round of applause for the grantees of the Prosperity Foundation? We unveiled the grantees really only a few months ago, back in March, and it was such an exciting experience to really be able to embody and live the mission that you heard earlier about the Prosperity Foundation and what it intends to be. We are really pooling our own resources for our own community to strengthen our community. We have built a vehicle to enable that and make that happen. And so when you see the grantees and you hear from the grantees, that's when you hear the results in action. So it's a great investment, the Prosperity Foundation, because it's our investment, it's our collective investment in strengthening our community. So we have really been fortunate to be able to give away grants to the community. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about various ways to get involved in the Prosperity Foundation. First of all, these events have been absolutely essential to growing the Prosperity Foundation. You heard earlier that there were focus groups and interviews that really led to the development of this organization. This wasn't something that a couple people just decided to do and just made it happen. There were years of conversations to lead us to this point. And part of what we heard is that it was important to really get out there in the community. It was important to go to different parts of the state of Connecticut. Go to Hartford, go into Stamford, into Bridgeport, into New Haven. Engage the community very directly. These events are an opportunity to do that. They're an opportunity for the community to connect, to learn about the Prosperity Foundation, and really learn about ways in which you can participate. So this is really the fourth event of this format for the Prosperity Foundation to date. So it's just wonderful to see all of you here and many new faces, some who've attended Prosperity Foundation events before, but many who haven't. So that is incredibly encouraging to see the network of the Prosperity Foundation continuing to grow. So participating in these events, that's one critical way to be involved. And thank you so much for making that effort to come here tonight. This is really the fourth, as I mentioned, event of this kind, and we're going to do another event in the next several months where we're going to unveil our next round of grantees, and I'll talk about that in a moment. You've also heard that the Prosperity Foundation is really a vehicle for philanthropy to connect to the Black community. In a lot of ways, we're borrowing from some traditional ideas about philanthropy. The Prosperity Foundation is essentially a community foundation. It is organized very similarly. It has one central pot of funding out of which the Prosperity Foundation gives grants to organizations, as you saw in the film. But that's not the only philanthropy in the Prosperity Foundation. There's a lot that's going on that's driven by specific individuals and specific families. Donor-advised funds.
Yes, tonight we are here at the Prosperity Foundation, and we heard a little bit from you about the Black Quarterback Syndrome. It's a new book release from you. How does that tie in? How does the overall theme of the Black Quarterback Syndrome tie into what overall the Prosperity Foundation was talking about tonight?
Well, Howard K. Hill explained to me that he'd become aware of my book, and when he first approached me about it, I thought, how do I fit in? But when I listened to him, he said, you know, many of my constituents face exactly what you're talking about, this Black Quarterback Syndrome. That is, because many of us are first and pioneers, we find people questioning our competency, our ability, whether or not they should trust us, and they seem to doubt us. And those are the fundamental aspects of what I call the Black Quarterback Syndrome. When people haven't seen people like you or like the prototype before doing a certain kind of work, they pause and they wonder. For example, let's say that on one of our television stations here in Connecticut, they hired a person in a wheelchair to do the weather. Now that person could be extremely well trained, but maybe the management worries about whether or not this person will be accepted from a wheelchair, whether or not she can do it competently as other people have. You may have noticed that people who do the weather now, they all look like actors and actresses. They all have to be so mobile and traditional, if you will. So that's an example of the Black Quarterback Syndrome, that person in the wheelchair who has the abilities, but nonetheless they experience some doubt and some uncertainty, and the inability to form real good relationships because sometimes people are afraid to even talk to them about the fact that they are in a wheelchair.
Well, I think your message was well received tonight, and I appreciate hearing about Black Quarterback Syndrome.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Do it again.
Bye-bye.
And we're going to keep doing it. And this year, we are releasing our second annual Small Grants RFP. And we have copies of that RFP in the back. Of course, we'll be posting that and distributing that online as well. The deadline is January 31st. So we're going to have an entire new round of grantees, and we'd like you to encourage people to apply. Some of you in this room may want to apply, but this is really a great way not only of giving money to our communities, but even just going through the process last year. We learned so much about what's going on. Not every organization that got a grant from this organization is well known necessarily, and there are some organizations that are doing fantastic work that really fly under the radar screen. They don't get foundation grants. Sometimes they're ignored by the established traditional base of foundation support. And we're really in some way adding a new opportunity for organizations that are led by and serving Black communities to get some resources. So I just want to leave you with that.
My name is J. Stan McCauley, and I do business as Light Source Productions. I provide professional services in the area of strategic video communications. First, what we do is we help you craft your message using what I call the rule of the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why. We do event documentation, content acquisition, full-scale productions, editing, and of course distribution through our social media television network. And with social media, video is more important now than it has ever been. Whether you're talking big business, small business, nonprofit, church, or just an individual. Let's say you plan you're planning an event, a wedding, whatever the case may be, but let's say a big event, but no video. And you spent all this time, all these hours to put this event on, and maybe 100, 200 people attend the event. But more important than that is that thousands could attend by watching it on social media. But of course, you don't think about this until after the event is over. You can't afford not to capture it for social media. And despite what people think, I am affordable. Give me a call. Let's plan your next video project and share it with the world on my social media television network. I promise you that you will have the attention of one person, me.
Only Black organization in the state that does this. Let's move this program along. Mr. Rodney Powell, Hartford, Connecticut resident and Norfolk, Virginia native. Mr. Rodney Rod Powell has served on various boards such as the Hartford Foundation, Bushnell Center for the Performing Arts, Council for Adult and Experimental Education, American Gas Association, and Capital Region Workforce Board. During 2015, Mr. Powell and other Black donors joined together to establish the Black Giving Circle. The fund's mission is to create sustainable change in the Black community by leveraging the philanthropic efforts of donors celebrating Black philanthropy. Not only does Mr. Powell talk the talk, he also walks the walk, consistently going above and beyond to put his money where his mouth is. He was the Prosperity Foundation's first donor. Give him a round of applause. It is individuals like this humble man, this historian, this trailblazer, Mr. Powell, that the Prosperity Foundation is where it is today and continues to move in the right direction. Thank you, Mr. Powell, for doing what you do. Now, please join me in giving Mr. Rodney Powell a warm welcome. Round.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I know the evening is getting late and I won't be long. First of all, I am just completely impressed with this evening, with the fact that we've got a room full of Black folks in a premier hotel in Hartford on a Christmas shopping night when it's supposed to be cold and rainy, and we are talking about collecting and giving money, and it's not church. I'm impressed. One thing I do is what I call the discipline of philanthropy. Now, we've all got that uncle in our family. My uncle was named Osmond. And Osmond was, tall, slender, slick hair, in and out of jail. Would steal the coal out of ice. But he was family. And when, you either had to, it wasn't a matter of lending it to him because you weren't gonna get it back. And we all got those family members. So I just, and I watched my mother, who was his first cousin. We, just whatever it was, you kind of had to give it to him because you knew that he was going to either figure out some other way to get it anyhow. So as a people, we've been giving for over 400 years. When we first landed on these bloody shores, we have been giving. And so philanthropy, even though it's a nice catchphrase, it's not new to us. It's something we've done all our existence here. And so I would encourage all of you to continue to support this organization. One of the things I'm doing with my two youngest kids is to sit down with them and help me figure out, what. And I was talking to the Hartford Foundation the other day, what I want to give.
Hi, I'm Naisha McCauley here with Access TV, W4 News, and State Representative Doug McCauley is standing here. Doug, now we just have been in the presence of greatness here tonight.
Right. You're right, absolutely. Howard's a great man. He has some great, ambitious ideas. I've fortunately been working with him over the past year. That he mentioned that program, BBA. Me and him work on a board together called Minority Business Initiative from the state of Connecticut, and we were fortunate enough to get them a grant of $300,000 to do a lot of work for small black businesses in the state of Connecticut. So I know his work behind the scenes. He has a lot of fire, and the field that I'm in, it's really good to work with somebody like that, because sometimes in politics it gets very lonely, especially when your mindset is so focused on trying to help your community, and unfortunately a lot of people don't think that way. But when I started to work with him, man, I felt comfortable. I felt like, I could start a sentence and he could end it. He understood, his mindset is there, and he has goals for our community, and I really appreciate that.
Now, Representative McCauley, we heard tonight about philanthropy. Now, this concept, obviously, we heard tonight is not new for our community, but in some ways it is. How do you think that is going to work? How do you think it's going to be received that this Prosperity Foundation is bringing this concept of philanthropy to the black community?
Like you said, as a community, as individual black people, we have always given. We have always given to our families. We have always given to our friends. But this is new territory for us. And I think it's something that's good. I think it's an opportunity to expand our opportunities to support other people. And like I said, it's something new for us. But I think as a people, we can do this. And we just have the mindset of giving back and leaving something for someone else isn't very important. I think we have that mindset, and by doing this, it'll take us a long way.
Well, good to see you tonight. Thank you for all that you're doing and contributing to the economic prosperity of the community.
I just want to say, I just want to drop this seed for all you guys. The first to know, myself and a number of like-minded individuals are going to be working on something that's really dynamic to the state of Connecticut for our community. Just put it this way, it's going to be a black think tank, something that we don't have, something that we need, something that other communities have, and it's going to be focused on 4 subject areas: economics, education, healthcare, and community supports. So it's coming down the pipe. We're at the very beginning stages. We're going to find like-minded people who want to do the work of working in our communities and building it. So look for it. It's coming down the pipe, and it's going to be something that's very dynamic.
I'm here with another attendee of the Prosperity Foundation event tonight. Dion, tell me a little bit about how you received the message that you heard tonight from the keynote speaker and the other speakers here.
Well, tonight the keynote speaker actually opened my eyes to say I'm not the only one with the quarterback syndrome. And it got me to want to do more. So I figured if we all, like you said, come together and stand together, we can all strive together and thrive together. So that was one of the messages I got out of tonight. And it was very helpful for what I'm trying to do and what other people are trying to do as well.
Had you heard about the Prosperity Foundation before tonight?
A couple weeks ago, yes. But then tonight I wanted to come to find out what is it actually about. And tonight it was just, like I said, an eye-opener to say that, like, a room full of black people coming together to say we're going to help each other instead of going out and helping other communities. We're going to help our own.
So that's Black Philanthropy, right? So how do you think that concept is going to be received in the community?
Well, I hope it's received very well, but we need to still fight for it and make sure that we all get a clear understanding of what's about to happen, not just in the White House, but in our own community. So if we all get the message and it comes through clear, I think we'll do well.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for being here. The night has slipped by us. We had wonderful speakers. We had a wonderful turnout. We eat, we drink, we socialized, we networked. This is what it's all about. I only have a few minutes according to the schedule, but if anybody knows me, it's tough for me to shut up. So I will do my best. Most of us in here are surviving. Doesn't matter how much money you make. We're all surviving. I happen to think that that's by design. Individually, we may be able to make it. We may be able to survive a little bit better than others, but we're still surviving because we have not our own community, a place that we can go to get the support that we need. I envision the Prosperity Foundation as being the hub of the Black community. We have 3 pillars that we work on: economics, health, and education. Most of this resonates with you. Most of what you're doing out there on a daily basis is in those areas. But it's economics, health, and education in a certain way. It's not just giving someone a scholarship to go to school. For us, for me, it's about education about who you are as a Black person in America. If we all know your history, you know that you've been cut off from your ancestors. We don't know our Black culture. We don't know it intimately enough to understand it. Most of what we experience today from systems, from others, has actually been stolen from our ancestors, if you know your history. But we happen to believe that we are inferior in many ways. And to Mr. Davis's point, to his book, there are many factors that he talked about that are similar to the things that we're working on in our community with the Prosperity Foundation. He talked about trust issues. We all have trust issues, right? I would guess that you would say yes. That's by design. What's interesting, Yvonne brought up this point about Black entrepreneurs. I'm a Black entrepreneur. And I happen to be a Black funeral director, while others are just funeral directors. So what does that mean? It taints us in many ways, right? So not only do we have self-oppression individually, we have oppression amongst us. We oppress ourselves, our own communities, right? Yes. The Prosperity Foundation works on really, really tough issues, mindset issues. We invest in education of self. Yes. We invest and economic independence. Not necessarily going to get a job, but go make the company and create the job for yourself. I like to think that in my world, I bought myself a job for a lifetime. Only I'm going to make myself fail. That's a pretty powerful and liberating thing and place to be in life. Any entrepreneurs out here? You all know what I'm talking about. Our community needs more entrepreneurs. Thinking about what's going on in the White House, we need more entrepreneurs out there. We have to do business with one another. Yes, sir. That's how we sustain ourselves. Thank you all for clapping. I think that's a condition for us, right? It's like being in church. I gotta forgive me. But a lot of stuff that we do is meaningless. I appreciate the agreement. But you know what we need to do? We know what we need to do. Right? Yes. Together is how we're going to survive. Right. Together is how we're going to thrive. I published a commercial and it talked about how many times a dollar circulates in the black community. Anybody heard that? From the NAACP, the statistics. And it said in the white community that the dollar circulates about 17 times before it leaves. In the Asian community, it's about 30 days. And in the black community, it's about 6 hours. How can we survive? Why do we always have to go outside of our communities to find the products and services? Why can't we just make them? We got a lot of work to do. This foundation is about the future. It's not about now. Our ancestors made great sacrifices for us so that we can be here today. And we're acting like we don't know. This foundation is about collecting our resources, our time, talent, and treasures, putting it under one umbrella and leveraging our collective resources to attract more money. Anybody ever have to go get a loan and they actually needed the money and got turned down? But it's kind of funny, when you don't need the money, they're throwing you resources, right? This is about self-help, you all. This is not about Howard K. Hill trying to get money from you. This is all about the community. I feel blessed, just like you, Brother Powell. I can be very well off if I want to, believe me. But I can't do it. I can't do it when my fellow brother and my fellow sister is struggling just to keep food on their plate. I can't do it. So this foundation is pretty deep. And I know that many of you may be attached to other structures, and getting involved with us may cause you to jeopardize your own personal security and safety. I get it. I understand it. But they can't tell you how to spend your money. Right. So if you are in that place and you have to protect yourself, then that's the time where you give. If you are in a place of independence and you want to make change in your community, that's when you build your own vision on how to help and how to give back by creating an endowed fund. There's different ways to give. You can give collectively, as Dave said. You can start a giving circle. Some folks they love scholarships. We love education as black folks, don't we? We love it. You can give collectively and decide who deserves the grant. But whatever you do, make sure it goes to a black person. See, what's interesting about this foundation, and just for clarity, we are an independent foundation. We are independent. We started out as a component fund of the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven. And we decided we did not want to be owned. That's the reason why we are an independent foundation. Now, the philanthropy world is very, very complicated, but it's pretty simple at the same time. Our relationship with the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven is a contractual relationship. We hired them to do our back office management of funds. That means that we can move our funds at any time we want. That's powerful, right? Yes. We are in control of our own destiny. Yes, yes. And just like Brother Smith said, when he did the exercise of folding your arms, think about what we're doing here. I'm challenging you, and I'm sure that you're looking at me and saying, how the heck are we going to get this money? How the heck are we going to make a change in our community and we don't have all the resources like the Hartford Foundation or the New Haven Foundation or the Fairfield County Foundation? Well, let me tell you how we're going to do it. We're going to do it collectively. That's how we're going to do it. One little bit, one donation at a time. That's how it's going to get done for us. Because individually, we do not probably have the wealth to leave $1 million or $2 million or $15 million somewhere in a fund, right? Has anybody here got $15 million? If you do, then see me. See me? So I want to just do a few things, right, before we leave. When we did our focus groups in New Haven, Hartford, and Fairfield County, there was a very consistent message that came from each one of those focus groups. Issues as to why we weren't going to be successful. And the underlying issue was trust. Do they trust these black people to manage their money and give it out the way they intended to, right? So I want to do a trust exercise today. We're an action-oriented group, right? We're not here just to talk about issues. What I'd like to know is every day, what can you do individually to help build trust in your community? Very simple act. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So sometimes I get a chance to, and I ride down the street and I see, I have a business on Barber Street. Anybody know where Barber Street is? Okay. So I need black men to work, right? And I'm looking for black men and I can't find them. Like, they won't come to work, right? So I ride down Barber Street 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and guess what I see? I see a whole bunch of black men on the block, drinking, shooting. So me, in my mind, I form an opinion, and I talk to myself, and I'm talking about my people. See, that's something that I gotta stop. So I just want to give you an example. What are some very little things that we can do individually, independently, to build trust within our community? Anybody can feel free to wave your hand. Ma'am.
I'm in fund development, so I know for a fact that people trust you when they see you actually doing something, giving back as well.
Okay. Thank you for that. Sir.
You've always said actions speak louder than words. So if you're working with someone and you have to build that trust. Trust is not something that can build overnight. So it's something that you have to build, whether with your community or with your brothers or your neighbors.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Just do what you say you're gonna do.
Okay.
Keep your word, be ethical.
Follow through on your word. Thank you. Anybody else, ma'am?
Build trust by sometimes giving it. When there are a lot of young people, oftentimes I've had people approach me and say, "Do you know anyone who needs a job?" And I think, you know what? I know some young, talented people of color, and I'm going to put their name out there, trusting that they're going to work hard and set a good example in their own community and without the community. So giving trust is just important.
Thank you very much. Larry.
Pray every day for guidance, strength, and mercy, and then put it into action.
All right. Thank you, Larry.
I think it's a very simple thing, but instead of looking at these young brothers with disdain, I like to say, good morning, my brother. How you doing, my brother?
Okay, thank you.
In collaboration with what she said, communication, we don't really talk to each other in our communities. We live next door to each other. We even go to church together, but we really don't live next door to each other.
Okay, thank you.
Well, as homeowners, I think we need to start investing in our own community by choosing vendors that's from us to work on our homes and things like that. And then when they fall by the wayside, don't lose hope in our whole race.
That's
right. You know, pick up and choose another one.
That's right.
Because that's the only way we're going to build something.
Love, go ahead.
Off that same energy, you have to stop with these hotels, criticism of everything black.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. That was a short exercise. I know the time is getting away from us. Oh, I'm sorry.
We should listen to one another.
Say louder, sister.
We should listen to one another and not be quick to doubt our leaders. We have good leaders from all walks of life. We should listen and not pay attention, especially to the media, but we should listen to all our leaders and give and not take what someone else say about a person. Get to know the person for yourself before you make a judgment or have an understanding based on something that came to you through something or someone else.
That's very serious. That's actually how we get our information, right? Through word of mouth on the street. I heard so-and-so did such and such. That's a horrible thing for us, right? Thank you very much. Speaking of leaders, we have one particular leader in the House who I've been working with on an economic opportunity for our community. The Black Business Alliance, the gentleman in the film, Frank Dixon, who's here, or was here, oh, he's in the back, has received an award from the state of Connecticut Department of DECD, Department of Economic and Community Development, an award of approximately $300,000 or so to do business outreach and development and technical assistance. And the person that has been a pit bull for our community is Mr. Representative Doug McCauley. And I just want to I'm not sure if you understand what that means, but when I say that we need more entrepreneurs in our community, what Frank talked about was entrepreneurs' sustainability and helping to make sure that they thrive and getting them access to resources that they need. We're sitting at the table, y'all. We have a direct pipeline, but we have some work to do in order to benefit from that, right? So I want to encourage you to really and truly get involved, roll your sleeves up, and begin to work for yourself and work for your community. I want to wrap this up because, again, I can talk. I want to take this opportunity to thank our keynote speaker, Mr. Norm Davis, the Black quarterback. Also, Mr. Rod Powell, our first contributor, the person who really and truly believed in us, planted a seed of hope for us. Thank you, Mr. Powell. Mr. Bill Costin, who provided us with the artwork this evening. Thank you for coming through for us. Mr. David Morass, our consultant for TPF, Margaret Inc. Ms. Lynn Baptiste, she's a consultant for TPF and helped to put this whole program together. Thank you, Lynn. Lellum Blind Productions, the videographer. I want to thank you also for your contributions. Miss Yvonne Davis, who helped me at the last minute. Thank you, Yvonne. I call Yvonne Olivia Pope. But there's just a few more people I want to acknowledge. Just bear with me just one second. It's very important. All my folks that came in from New Haven, monks, thank you. Everybody. There's a woman here. Her name is Kathy Graves, and she was the impetus behind the major grant that we received from the Kellogg Foundation in the tune of $300,000. I want to thank you as well. I always like to point out my family, my sister Jody Hill, Lily, her husband, Sean. I believe my brother was here, my youngest brother. Is he here? He had to leave? Okay. He's in the CIA, I think. I don't never know. And then also, my fellow board members, Mr. Eves Joseph, Carolyn, thank you so very much. Carolyn Vermont, Larry, thank you. And of course, my beautiful wife, Nancy. There's another board member, Roland Young-Smith, who's also been behind the scenes providing us with some legal support and also some promote calm when we get out of hand and things of that nature. But thank Roland, she's here with us in spirit as well. I just want you to know that to start an organization is very tough, right? You all know this, many of you started your own organizations. We have to survive together, okay? So let's think about how we can do that, how we can survive together, how we can coexist where we're not taking food off of your plate, we're not in competition with one another. Typically that's what happens to us, right? You know, they put stuff out and we become competitive. We start to beat each other down in order to get to just little crumbs. How do we expand or even create a pie so we all can eat? That's what this is about. Thank you all for coming, and good night.
Hi, I've been joined by the couple of the evening, Howard and Nancy Hill. It was my pleasure and my honor to hear about the Prosperity Foundation tonight. And the one question that I want to hear, and I know, Howard, you delivered this message to us, but What was the real impetus for wanting to start the Prosperity Foundation? You know, when you wake up in the morning, like what was the real driving factor that said, you know, this is something that we have to do?
Well, for me, it was, I have a fund in my father's name, and at the time it was set up with the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven. And it, you know, was clear to me that, you know, when I've gone on, or, you know, who's to say that the fund is going to be distributed to the students, you know, of color at the high school that my father worked. And I wanted to make sure that that would always happen. So placing the money, you know, with the Prosperity Foundation makes the most sense, and having it develop as such, so then that way I know that that is for sure where it will be going. And it's for, you know, for the Black community, for the benefit of Black students or any persons or programs of color in need. For sure, that's what the Prosperity Foundation is all about. We are very purposeful, like I said, about creating it for that purpose and that purpose only.
Sure. So there were several driving factors for me. I served on a board at a community foundation for Greater New Haven and New Haven for 7 years. And I often wondered why we never had, as a people, why we didn't have something like this, where we can tap into resources in our community and solve issues without having to beg for money. My experience when it came to organizations that were run by Black people was that there was a lack of understanding of how to solve the issues in the community. So when it came to funding, the funders, their perspective on how to solve the problem was not necessarily aligned with the mission of the organization. So causing, it was almost handcuffing the organization leaders, because they had to utilize the funds in a certain way. And as I said, most of our organizations are in survival mode, right? So the Prosperity Foundation, my vision was that it would provide these leaders with enough flexibility, would provide them a grant with enough flexibility to utilize the funds in a way that would actually help the organization as opposed to handcuffing them. And there's this idea of a plantation, and a master, an overseer, that always resonated with me. When I first got into philanthropy, I opened up a fund under this foundation, the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven. And one of the things that I noticed with the contract was that it was an irrevocable gift. That means that those monies, while I have influence on how it's spent, it's actually their money. So I just found it really, I had a hard time with that. Why would I give my money to an institution where they controlled, when I'm long and gone, they controlled how the money was going to be dispersed? So I had a hard time with that. So I just said, you know, I would prefer to set up an institution that captures our philanthropy, however big or however little it is, and we use it the way we want to use it. We have that flexibility. So those are just a few things. Let me just say this as well. There's something about empowerment. We have signature organizations, the NAACP, the Urban League. A lot of people think that's for Black people or African American people. They don't really say that. Those are for minorities. Minorities can be anybody. our foundation is for the benefit of black people. It's very clear. There's something courageous about that, because many of us are afraid to be pro-black and do things that are pro-black. What we do is we try to skirt around it and use words like minority or urban, talking in code. So the powers that be will allow things to happen for a period of time, but if they want to take their control and their resources back, they just do it. This organization will not allow them to do that. I want it to be empowered. I wanted our people to be empowered. I wanted them to be proud of this organization. I want them to participate, and I want this thing to grow, and I want this to grow beyond their imagination, because I believe that it can.
That is the final word on that. Thank you so much for tonight. I'm inspired, and I know our audience members are going to be inspired as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you.